I was so excited when I ran across my Aunt Kathy's legendary lemon squares. These are the perfect combination of a buttery crust with a tangy lemon filling, and the filling is so lemony, it is so delicious. My aunt was always the dessert hero at any family gathering, and I can't wait to share this recipe with you so that you can be the dessert hero at your family's gatherings too. Welcome to The Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today's recipe is super easy to make. I mean, literally, it is so easy to make. You need a few ingredients, including lemon, eggs, a little bit of powdered sugar, and some flour, and a little salt, and butter, of course. And a pan that you can press the shortbread butter crust into. And then we're gonna use the oven to bake up some old-fashioned lemon squares with the powdered sugar put right on top. These are amazing. I'm gonna use the stand mixer, but you could make the entire recipe in a bowl with a hand mixer. That would be fine. And if you really wanted to, you could probably just beat the butter with a wooden spoon and add the other ingredients, and you could do it that way too. But the stand mixer makes it pretty easy. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is build the shortbread crust, this is so super simple. You want 2 sticks or 1 cup of salted or unsalted. It's your preference, okay? I use salted, but you could use unsalted, it's fine. Butter that's very soft, room temperature, very soft, okay, but not melted. That is important. We're gonna put that into the base of the stand mixer first. And don't throw your wrappers away, and I'll show you why in just a minute. There we go. Use the paddle attachment. Lock your mixer in place and just go on low. We're gonna just start to cream this butter. All right, that looks good. The reason why I do that is just to make sure that it is soft enough that the flour and the powdered sugar is going to incorporate in with the butter pretty easily. If for some reason your butter's not breaking up, it's not creaming, it's just a little too cold, and you can actually soften it in your stand mixer by going on a medium speed for a minute or so. All right, we're gonna add in 1/2 of a teaspoon of fine grind sea salt or kosher salt. Either one is fine. And then 1/2 of a cup, and I'm gonna open this up so I can dump it in a little easier. 1/2 of a cup of powdered sugar. Now I didn't sift this, okay? I just went into my container and I lifted out 1/2 of a cup of powdered sugar. So you don't have to be really exact with this, and the lumps they're not gonna affect anything. So you don't have to sift it. But if you want to, you can. Because I didn't, I would recommend just scooping out 1/2 of a cup, leveling it off, and then sifting it into your bowl directly. That'll give you the same measurement as I'm using here in this recipe. All right, we're gonna go on low speed because you know powdered sugar likes to go everywhere. And you only have to go for about 10 seconds because we're gonna start adding in some flour as well, and we don't need the powdered sugar completely mixed in at this point. Now, what I recommend with the flour is don't add it all in at once. This is 2 cups of all-purpose flour that I scooped, fluffed, and leveled out, okay? I don't weigh my flour, but you certainly can if you want to. I do not recommend adding it all in at once because what will happen, the flour will be too much for the mixing bowl. When you turn it on, even on low, it will start to fly out. I know that because I've done that, right? So we're gonna add in about 1/3 of it. No need to be exact, okay? Just add in what you would eyeball to be 1/3. Lock your mixer down and go on low speed until it all starts to incorporate with the butter. When you start to see a lot of like crumbles, but you're seeing less and less flour, it takes about 30 seconds or so on the low speed. Then we can add in another 1/3 of the flour here. And do the same thing. Lock your mixer down and do low speed for about 30 seconds. All right, that's looking good. And the final addition of the flour. After about 15 seconds, when it looks like it's mostly incorporated, I like to take some sort of a tool or spatula and scrape down the side. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. And also kind of push this off, just in case there's any butter left on the paddle. We wanna get it into the mixture. And also I recommend going all the way down to the bottom. See, I've got some crumbs down here. I really want this to be a smooth, almost like a sugar cookie dough when I go to press it into the pan. So we want to make sure that any of the dry flour from underneath at the very bottom is lifted up into the mixture as well. All right, let's go and lock it down, go on low speed. All right, that looks good. That was probably mixing for about a minute. Once you see it turn into the consistency of what looks like sugar cookie dough, you are done. It doesn't have to be real crumbly like a traditional shortbread crust. So this actually, I think, is even easier to work with. All right, now we're gonna scrape down the side, scrape down the paddle, make sure we have all of this delicious dough ready to go, and we're gonna press it into our pan. The size pan that I'm using is about a 9 by, I would say 13 pan. It's a quarter pan. I like using this for this recipe, but any 9 by 13 pan will work. And my Aunt Kathy used a 10 by 14 pan, which I don't even have one of those. I don't even know if they make those anymore. So 9 by 13 or 10 by 14, perfectly fine. You do want to have a little bit of a lip on it, probably about 1.5 to 2 inches is sufficient, but you could put it in a deeper pan. That's perfectly fine too. So a regular 9 by 13 with like a 2.5 inch lip is perfectly fine to use. All right, now what I like to do is line it with parchment paper. You do not have to line it with parchment paper. These will come out without buttering the pan, without doing anything. But I like to line it with parchment paper because I just think it makes it easier after it chills to lift the whole thing out, and it makes it super easy to cut into those iconic lemon squares. So I use a little bit of parchment, and this is where the butter wrappers come into play. So parchment doesn't always stick to the tray. Like, it kind of lifts up here and there. This one doesn't have much butter on it at all, but we're gonna put a little bit of butter on the bottom. This is just so the parchment sticks. This one has a little bit more, especially in the corners, okay? And along the sides. That's really where you want it. You do not need to butter the top of the parchment because there's plenty of butter in this dough, and it's gonna set up just fine, and it will not stick, of course, to the parchment. It also will not stick to the pan. So like I said, if you just want to press it right into the pan, go right ahead. You do not need to butter your pan, but it won't hurt if you do. That'll be fine too. Okay, now I just put this piece of parchment over top and start to press it in and try to get it as seamless as I can, because what will happen is in the corners here, which, you know, I eat the corners and serve all the inside pieces, so I don't really care, but they will start to kind of get little indents into the crust. And see how well the butter allows it to stick? Now, some people say crumble up your parchment paper and then it lays in flat. That doesn't work for me. Some people say just spritz it with water and it'll stick. I don't like to do that. So I just think, why not? I mean, we've got the butter wrappers, so why not do it this way? All right, so what I do is just put the cookie dough batter, whatever you want to call it, shortbread dough batter, just in the bottom here and kind of spread it around in different areas here, just like that. We're gonna spread it all out. It's gonna become nice and smooth and cover the bottom as evenly as possible. So this is the bench scraper that I was talking about. And if you have some areas where you don't have any cookie dough, which is, I guess, essentially what this is. It's really a shortbread crust, but it's not crumbly like traditional shortbread. So in that way, I think it's a little bit more like a cookie dough. we're just gonna spread it out a little bit with this. And what you want is an even layer all the way on the bottom of your pan. But you don't really want them going up the edges. So if I have some of the cookie dough going up the edges, I just push it back down into the bottom like that. All right, we're pretty good. Now I'm just gonna finish it up with my hands because I can see exactly what I'm doing and where I need to press and even it out. Now keep in mind when it bakes, this is going to melt, you know, and kind of even out on its own a little bit. So as long as you have it pretty even, you're gonna be fine. All right, that looks good. And remember, it does not have to be perfectly smooth. It's going to level out as we bake it. Now my oven is preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I preheated it prior to starting the recipe. That's what I recommend that you do. You're gonna put this on the middle rack and bake it at 350 Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. While the shortbread cookie crust is baking in the oven, it's time to make the lemon topping, I guess I would call it. It's not really a filling, but it reminds me of a filling, but it goes on the top of the bars. So we start out with 4 large room temperature eggs. What I recommend doing is cracking your eggs on the cutting board or any flat surface and then putting them into a container, like a little bowl or something like that, like I have here. And that way, if you get any shells in here, it's just easier, I think, to get them out. And then we'll pour them into the bowl. It also helps if, you know, just in case, like, I don't know, your egg isn't good or something like that. So you don't ruin all of them if you run across a problem with one of the eggs. All right, there we go. Now this can be done in the stand mixer as well using the whisk attachment, but instead of taking the time to clean that bowl out, I'm gonna use a different bowl and a hand mixer and end up having to clean 2, but that's okay. To the egg mixture, we're gonna add in 1/4 teaspoon of fine grind sea salt or kosher salt. Either one is fine. We're also going to add in 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. You can just dump those right in right now. It's perfectly fine. And now we're gonna start with our lemons. So these lemons are washed, and I also like to move them across the cutting board like this just to release the juices. You may not need all 4 lemons. We're gonna use the zest from 1 lemon, and then we're gonna use the juice from as many lemons as we need to equal 1/2 of a cup. Now, if you don't have fresh lemons on hand, you can skip the zest and you can use bottled lemon juice in this recipe. I am almost certain that's what my aunt did. She probably zested 1 and then used bottled juice for the remaining lemon juice. All right, here we go. Now, however you want to zest is fine. I get criticized for the way I zest things all the time. I don't care. This is how I do it, and it's easy for me. Just when you're zesting, make sure you don't get down into the white part of the lemon. That is called the pith, and it is bitter. Now, if you wanted to zest the other lemons and use the zest like to put on top as a decoration, you certainly can do that. If you wanted to add in more lemon zest, you certainly can do that too. But these lemon squares really do have a nice lemony flavor. And I'm one of those people that thinks that most desserts, lemon desserts that you make, don't pack enough of a lemon flavor. These do. They are just delicious. All right, I'm gonna set this down here for a minute and we're gonna start to juice the lemons, which I am using my juicer here, which makes it easy and I'm able to get out a whole lot of juice. You could also hand squeeze them if you don't have a juicer. Pour in the 1/2 cup of lemon juice, and then we're gonna go on low speed with this mixer and get everything incorporated. All right, when it's mostly incorporated, like I'm talking about the flour and stuff, and the eggs are lightly beaten, take a spatula and go down the sides here Then we're gonna add in the sugar, because yes, we do need sugar in this. And I did not have the sugar measured out as one of the ingredients in the beginning of the video. I apologize for that, but we definitely need sugar in this or it would taste horrible. 2 cups of sugar, which I have it in a liquid measuring device, but I measured it out in dry measure. And we can just dump that right in. And then we do the same thing, low speed, just until it's incorporated. All right, that looks perfect. I'll scrape down the sides of the bowl, and now we just wait for the shortbread crust to get out. We're gonna let it cool on a cooling rack for about 5 minutes. We'll pour this on top and get it back into the oven to finish up our lemon squares. After 5 minutes of cooling on the cooling rack, we can move the cookie crust over to the cutting board. Stir your mixture a little bit in case the sugar settled to the bottom. Or if you still have your hand mixer out, you can certainly go ahead and mix it on low for a second. But that looks good. And then we just pour this over the top. Now, the first time I made these, I thought, oh my gosh, I really messed up. I did not do Aunt Kathy proud because these lemon bars don't look very yellow. And I don't think my aunt did this, but I do think that some people add in a little bit of food coloring to their lemon and sugar mixture. I do not do that, and you will see it will dull. It looks a beautiful lemon color right now, but as it bakes in the oven, it does dull down a little bit. It also browns a little bit on top, which we cover with the powdered sugar. But even when you cut them, they are not vibrant yellow inside. But if you want your filling, your lemon filling, to be a more vibrant yellow color, add in 1 to 2 drops of yellow food coloring. I'm not doing that though, because I think they are perfect just the way they are. And I just kind of like the look. They look nostalgic and a little rustic and not fake. And they remind me of Aunt Kathy. So I'm gonna leave this recipe alone for that. But you do whatever you wanna do. All right, now the pan's still hot, remember, so put your protective gloves on. We're gonna go back to baking this, but I lowered the temperature to 325 degrees Fahrenheit when I took the crust out of the oven. Because in my oven, 350 degrees browned the top too much. That could just be my oven versus my Aunt Kathy's oven. So you could try both. But I found that 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes was perfect for these lemon bars and gave me the really great consistency for the lemon part of the bar. If you find that you're not getting any browning on top at 325, bump it up to 350, okay? No problems. All right, this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. You can see a little bit of dark spots on the top, and that is perfectly fine because we're gonna cover that up right now with some powdered sugar. You want to put the powdered sugar on while the lemon squares are warm, okay? So don't let them cool down and then put the powdered sugar on or it's not gonna stick. I have a cooling rack over here, so I'm gonna set the pan on the cooling rack. And then I have a little bit of powdered sugar and a little bit of a little tiny sifter thing. And I just go over the top of it and sift the powdered sugar. Sifting is sort of important because you do not want clumps of the powdered sugar on top of your lemon squares. And I just start at one corner and get a nice coating over the entire top. And some of it's gonna fall off when you cut it. So you do want to have a good amount right now on the top, even if you want less on there when you serve it. And it also covers up any of those darker spots. So I used about 2 tablespoons or so of powdered sugar on the top. All right, that's it. Okay, now let them cool at room temperature for about 30 minutes, and then we're gonna pop it into the refrigerator uncovered. Very important. We don't wanna trap in the steam. We don't wanna melt the powdered sugar. We want the powdered sugar at the very bottom to kind of adhere to the top, and we want the rest of it to stay really nice and snowy looking, like a sifted powdered sugar. The lemon bars have finished cooling in the refrigerator, and now I'm ready to cut them. Now, one thing I will share with you is only cut what you're gonna serve, okay? Because they do tend to dry out if they're all cut up, and then you have to either freeze them or leave them in the refrigerator. So I like to just cut them as I'm serving them. So I'm just gonna cut up about half of these, and then I'll leave the other half in a block because I like to freeze it all the way in a block. To freeze them, whether they're cut individually or in a whole block, you are gonna put it on parchment paper, put it in the freezer on a tray, let it freeze through, then you can bag it up, okay? That's gonna be the best way to go about it. All right, now the parchment paper helps give us a little bit of a handle so that it's easier to get out of the tray, okay? Now mine came out really easy, right? Sometimes you have to kind of play with it a little bit. So don't be surprised if yours just doesn't lift right out. That happens sometimes. All right, now I'm gonna peel back the parchment paper. Now, one of the things I wanna show you is as I peel back the parchment paper, some of the edge will stick. Do not fret that. Just take your knife here and just sort of help it along a little bit, okay? And remember, the corners are for you because you're gonna have to taste it before you serve it to your guests, right? All right, these look so good. Now, I like to serve the lemon bars at room temperature, so I'll usually bring them out of the refrigerator a few hours before I'm gonna serve them. But cut them right away. Cut them when they're cold. They're just easier to deal with, okay? And then put them on your platter, and you can let them come to room temperature before you actually serve them to your guests. All right, here we go. I'm gonna cut this straight down the middle. Kind of bring it through. Now, the bottom cookie crust is definitely harder to get through than the lemon filling, so keep that in mind, okay? And now, and I'm not even cleaning my knife off. You obviously could, but I'm not gonna do that. As a matter of fact, I'm only gonna cut up this many. And I'm gonna leave these 2 pieces whole. So let me take this big piece out here. Get this up. Oh my goodness, look at these. Aunt Kathy would be proud. They look beautiful. Now, the size that you make your lemon squares is completely up to you. I think I will do this kind of how my aunt would have served them, which would be to cut this in half. And she probably would have cut them about this size. I would say that's about 2 to 3 inches a piece. That looks really good. Look at that. These are gorgeous. These are absolutely gorgeous. Now, I think I could have left them in the refrigerator just a little bit longer. Oh, and see what I mean? When you dump them, that kind of comes out a little bit. Yeah, I really think, because this is still a little soft, I could have left them in the refrigerator just a little bit longer. But you know what? It's not going to affect the taste, that's for sure. So here we go. Oh my. Wow. They're amazing. Sweet, but not too sweet. Tangy, but not too tangy. Good lemon flavor. Buttery crust. And that little bit of sugar on top is perfect. Mmm.